I'm back and welcome to a book haul. I haven't filmed a book haul for about 3 months, so I'm looking forward to getting into this massive stack that I have piling up around me. Firstly though, I would like to get to the books that I've already read so I can point you to different videos. The first one is The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill. I talk about this in a recent wrap up, and this one was about 3.5 stars for me, whereas this author wrote The Tea Dragon Society, which is one of my favourite graphic novels ever, so a little bit of a letdown, but the art was still beautiful and I'm still going to keep up with what this author is putting out. Then I've got a new release that came out by one of my favourite authors, and I recently talked about this in another wrap up, and that is The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell, which is the first book in a new fantasy series by him. It follows Cade, who is like a mercenary wanderist, basically a magician, and he's framed for murder in the initial chapters, and then his mate Corrigan, who is I guess a mercenary, a bit more of a psychopath than Cade, he brings Cade along with him and they try and fulfill this job for a client, and this job means they have to find 5 other mages, so it's 7 of them against this one guy that they need to kill. So it's a dynamic story to say the least. For me, I loved The Greatcoats more than this one, even though I did enjoy this one, and I do plan on continuing eventually when the rest of the series is written. Then after much urging from my friend Marie, I finally picked up one of her favourite books, and that is Wolf Song, and it also became one of my favourite books, and this is a werewolf urban fantasy, which is a series, but technically they're all companions, so you can read this and feel fulfilled because this follows Ox and Joe. Ox is a young boy at the beginning of the story, and he obviously grows up throughout the book, and we see him at the beginning discussing his relationship with his father, which is not a very healthy relationship, and his father is leaving him, and so based on that, Ox feels really alone. He's still got his mother, which is a really beautiful relationship, but you see him building this relationship with Joe and Joe's family. I liked the found family in here. It was such a beautiful story. It was so raw and heart-wrenching, and obviously I gave it 5 stars, and I think it was amazing, and I cannot wait to reread it, and I would have the rest of the series here in this haul as well. However, they're being released in their new covers to match this edition, so keep an eye out in August because Raven Song, which is the sequel companion to this, is going to be releasing then, and I'm really excited about it. And then speaking of my friend Marie, she got me a birthday gift which I did not expect at all, and it really brightened my day. She got me Heartstopper. Obviously I've read these, I love them. It's hard to see this easily on camera with the reflection, but this is a hardback edition that is I think some kind of special edition. I love it. It's so beautiful and I'm so happy to add it to my shelves. Then I have 2 very chunky books, and they are books in a series that I'm currently trying to finish reading, and that is the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. So I've got book 4, The House of Always, and then book 5, Discord of the Gods. These are a obviously high fantasy series with multiple points of view. It's about Kieran, who is our protagonist of sorts. There are a couple of protagonists, but he's really our main one, and Kieran ends up overhearing a demon discussing its plan with royalty in the beginning of book 1. And Kieran is kind of like a thief, I suppose, and a musician. I kind of think of him as like an unwilling rogue who has a heart of gold. He's there to help, but he also doesn't really want to directly be involved. And so we follow him as he gets caught up in all of these politics. And the first 2 books follow him, and then in the sequel we follow Janelle. And Janelle is a character with links to a demon, and she's also got this magic that makes her invincibly strong. And she's from a place in this world called Jorat, where they view gender as dominant and submissive rather than male and female. And so I like the discussion of how gender and sexuality ties into these books, and how it's just a thing about the characters rather than a massive plot point per se. It's just part of this world, which is really refreshing. Pretty much all of the characters in here are queer and not straight at all, so it's really nice to just read a fantasy series like that because I don't see it as often as I'd like to. And so reading a series with a polyamorous romance where pretty much all of the characters in it are some forms of queer, gay, ace is really nice to see. So perfect to continue this during Pride Month, which is my aim. I'm hoping to finish this series, but I'll see how I go, given that they're more than 500 pages, and when they're in their shorter paperback editions, they're over 700 pages, so they be chonky. And while we're talking about chonky, I may as well go and tell you that I went and bought this because I got the audiobook of this by Samantha Shannon because everyone was raving about it in February, and I read Priory and enjoyed it. I didn't love it like everyone else. I probably gave it around a 3.5 stars, but to get through Priory, because these books are so thick, I listened to the audiobook. So I was like, I'm gonna listen to the audiobook for A Day of Fallen Night, and then I tried to, and I couldn't get into it. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the lore that was being laid down at the beginning of the story to kind of set the scene. I don't know what it was, but I could not get connected to it. So when I was on holiday after I had my wedding at the end of April, I was like, I'm gonna wander into a bookstore and buy the thickest book I can find, and here it is. So hopefully at some point I can get to this, but it's honestly not a priority. I don't really know also what this is about. I've just heard that it's very gay, so I feel like it's very sapphic. It's got dragons and a lot of fantasy world building, which is one of the strengths of Samantha Shannon. I really enjoyed her world building in Priori, and given that this is a sequel in the same world, I'm really looking forward to what this ends up exploring. But apart from that, I genuinely have no idea what this is about. I just see that people really enjoyed it, so I'm hoping that I also really enjoy it. While we are talking about fantasy, I thought, why not add this into the list as well, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which is taking everybody by storm. It is a new release that came out, I think, at the end of May or during May, and everyone's like, I am obsessed with this. It's become people's new personality, and I want to know exactly why. This is, I believe, an enemies to lovers fantasy romance, and I don't usually read fantasy romance. Granted, I do like romance as a subplot in an overarching fantasy story, which is very much the case in The Chorus of Dragons by Jen Lyons. I'm absolutely rooting for this polyamorous trio, but aside from them, I'm loving the plot of the story as well, because it's got so much intrigue and twists, and the last 100 pages of the third book made me very stressed, which is a great thing because it meant that I cared a lot. So when I look at a book like this and it says fantasy romance, part of me goes, oh, I'm interested because I love good romance in a fantasy setting, but also part of me mildly panics because I want it to actually also focus on the fantasy elements. And I don't know whether this will get the balance right for my personal taste, but I'm willing to try it out. The only thing that I can really glean from the brief reading of the blurb I just did is that it's about a girl who prefers books and history, and she's been forced to join, I guess, like a magical trial to become a dragon rider, which sounds cool. I also bought the continuations to a graphic novel series or a comic book series that I loved the first volume of, and then my order was like, hi, I'm going to ship you volumes 3, 4 and 5, and volume 2 took over a month to get to me. So I've had to look at all of the volumes that I couldn't read yet because I needed to wait for volume 2. Volume 2 literally arrived several days ago, and now I have the rest of Fence, which I'm really hyped to read during Pride Month because I feel like this is very queer, given that the author, I think, is non-binary, perhaps. I'm not sure what pronouns they use. I'm gonna have to double check. It seems to be like an enemies to lovers, very much slow burn rivals story where the main character is joining this school and he thinks he knows a lot, but he actually doesn't have as much formal training as he thought, and the other character that he's pitted against has a lot of formal training but doesn't seem to have a lot of the personable training that he needs. So I think those two are going to end up becoming allies, maybe as a romance, I'm not sure, but at the moment they're very much rivals, which I am living for because that builds so much tension and it's very exciting. I recently also went for a walk around my area and there is a used bookstore not too far from me, and so of course I had to buy something, right? And I got The Power, which is a story I feel is more literary than SFF. But it says that all over the world, women are discovering they have the power. With a flick of the fingers, they can inflict terrible pain, even death. Suddenly, every man on the planet finds they've lost control. The day of the girls has arrived, but where will it end? This seems like X-Men crossed with The Handmaid's Tale that is empowering for women. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know who any of the characters are. I don't know what the purpose of this book is. So I'm looking forward to trying it out because, you know, dystopian with X-Men like powers is absolutely up my alley. Dystopian is one of my favorite subgenres ever, and I'm looking forward to trying this out and seeing if I like it as well. I finally caved and I bought a very popular release. Well, I don't know how popular it is outside of Fantasy Booktube, but this is a cozy fantasy and it's half a soul, and it's like a Regency romance but cozy fantasy about a girl who is the grumpy and a guy who is the sunshine, I think. The girl at the beginning of the story is cursed by this demon, and then it does, I think, a time skip. I haven't read past initially at the beginning because I borrowed this from my library. I read the beginning of it and I'm like, I will like this. I like the writing style and the tone so far, and I like the general concept of the story. So I went out and bought it. So at least before I even pick this book up physically, I know that I'm potentially going to enjoy it, which is a good thing. But I've seen cozy fantasy banged on about so often on BookTube recently, and it started from Legends and Lattes, which is one that I loved, about an orc starting a coffee shop in a town where nobody knows what coffee is and building that found family dynamic from that point on. That was beautiful, and I've been chasing that kind of vibe since, and I think this might have some of that facet to it because the romance aspect, the fantasy aspect, it's kind of fae-like, and I don't usually love fae because I'm very picky about it, but I think this will pull it off. And now, I've only just finished the first book in Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter, which I have a separate spoiler-free review for. I will link that for you. And then his next book arrived in the Kickstarter, and I have not opened it yet because apparently this came with a few other little extras that I didn't order, but I got as a bonus, which is cool. And also it says err on the side of awesome, which is also very nice. So I thought, why not open it on camera with you? Oh, that was a bit underwhelming, wasn't it? That's better. Oh, can you see that? I don't know. Maybe I'll do a cut in where it's closer. But this is a Cosmere pin of Vasha, which is a character from Warbreaker. There's a little sticker. Oh my god, it's a tiny little wizard sticker. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. We've also got a bookmark here, which I have another one for Tress of the Emerald Sea, and that's green. So it's nice to have one that matches Frugal Wizard for blue. The Sanderson team at Dragonsteel have included a spoiler card, but it's got a whole bunch of nonsense on the back. Nonsense in a good way, but it's just making fun of itself, which is kind of cute. And then we've obviously got the book, which is the Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England. What a title, oh my god. I thought Tress of the Emerald Sea was a long title. This one takes the cake. It says on the back, we here at Frugal Wizard Inc. are committed to providing you with the highest quality experience possible, available to any true wizard for a reasonable price. We provide the fun, you provide the body, with an asterisk. And the asterisk says, and the money. Don't forget the money. Also, we mean your own body, though we don't ask too many questions. So already it's kind of tipping into that humor that I feel is borderline for me. Like, if you do it well, like the blurb obviously did, I find it funny. But if it's done too much, it can feel a bit overwritten. So I'm hoping that I like this one as well. There's been a few in this book haul that I'm like, cross my fingers, but that's because they've been long. But this I'm like, oh, it's a bit chunky, but I'm also concerned about the tone. So I think I need to just go into this and temper my expectations like I did for Tress, because everyone loved that book and I enjoyed it, but didn't love it. So I'm hoping that I enjoy this one as well because it seems like a fun time. Then I've got a fantasy rom-com, and I think this is going to be a new category or genre that I'm really interested in. But I got A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, which just sounds like a fantastic time. It says, Mariel Spark knows not to trust a demon, but what's a witch to do when she's accidentally bound to one? So it seems like it might again be enemies to lovers, which seems to be an accidental theme for this video, like enemies to lovers romance. First Fourth Wing, now this. It's not usually my style, but clearly I was going for a kind of vibe with this book haul accidentally. So this is a short book. It's under 400 pages. I think I could smash it out. Also, it's a floppy paperback, which is just really nice. And then to continue the theme, we have another witch, well, another witch book, and that's Payback's a Witch. And it seems to be about two witches who are plotting revenge, but they end up falling in love in a magical romantic comedy. What's not to love? And then because I'm mildly chaotic in this book haul, in terms of getting a whole bunch of new stuff and starting new series, I am keen to start this fantasy series, and it's The Black Tongue Thief. This is, I think, about a thief who steals from the wrong person, and that person is a knight, and through unforeseen circumstances they're forced to work together on this quest, and they seem to hate each other's guts. Again, this whole hate thing clearly it builds great tension, but I'm looking forward to seeing where this story eventuates. And I heard about this initially on Reagan from Peruse Project's channel, where she described this book as intriguing but also gruesome. So I don't usually mind when there's, you know, a bit of grotesqueness to the story in terms of how graphic the violence gets. I'm looking forward to seeing where the characters go and how they interact, because a story really hinges on the characters for me. So if that can be done well, I'm intrigued. And I also really like this cover. I don't like the whole guy with sword that's like a clip art kind of thing standing there. This is more of a drawn artistic cover, which is something I'm really quite enjoying and looking for more of, because I want my fantasy books to be aesthetically pleasing and not just like a dude with a sword. Maybe that's just me though. And then finally, I have a book that I did not realize was queer until, again, I saw Reagan from Peru's project talking about it, and that is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I also have City of Stairs on my TBR as well, because I apparently can't read one book by an author before buying another one, but I have tried City of Stairs and I liked it. So I'm keen to actually finish it and also start a different series by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is about a slave who gets tasked with stealing a magical artifact. So already I am intrigued. That is enough to hook me, it doesn't take much. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes as well. But that is it for my book haul. My TBR cart is now nicely filling out again. Let me know if you own any of these books and if you enjoyed them down below. I'd be interested. Obviously don't spoil me, but you're pretty good at not doing that. So thank you again so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you at my next one. Bye.